It was cold and dark as Mimi Fernandez approached her car in the nearly deserted parking lot. The wind blew a pop can across the asphalt as Mimi opened her purse to get her keys. They were not where she usually. She checked the bottom of her purse, then frantic, her coat pockets, then furious, she stamped her foot. She had lost her keys. She was locked out of her car. The wind continued to scrape the pop can across the parking lot. Mimi wrapped her coat more tightly about her and looked around for aid. There was no one she could see. It suddenly felt much colder and darker to Mimi Fernandez. It's the unexpectedness of it at first, says Dr. Philip Katz, a psychologist who specializes in working with people who have been locked out of their cars. No one ever thinks it will happen to them. It's always the other guy. And then one day or night, boom. What comes first is that rush of anger, quickly followed by a nameless fear. And then, on top of that, there's the shame. Because you realize no matter who you tell, and you must tell someone, family, friend, or police, they're going to look at you as an incompetent, not a victim. In America, someone is locked out of a car, on average, every 30 seconds. Naturally, there are peak times, such as when the bars close. Considering the world as a whole, 2 people lock themselves out of their cars every second. So if it happens to you, you might console yourself with the thought that, quite literally, you are not alone. But that won't help. Because, says Dr. Katz, being alone is what it's all about. It's a moment of primal fear. It goes back to the separation anxiety everyone feels as a child, the fear that you will be taken from your parents, especially your mother. And in this case, there is guilt, because you feel responsible. Sergeant Frank Palermo has seen thousands of cases of lockout in his 27 years on the force. People think of police as the ones who lock people up, but we're also the ones they tend to call when they're locked out. A locksmith will charge you $40 if you can get one to come out at all. It's really no problem to get in the car, but it's a sensitive matter dealing with the individual involved, especially if he or she has locked the keys in the car itself. We are going to develop a special training program for officers to handle that situation if we can ever get the money. Dr. Katz says that the repercussions of this traumatic event extend far beyond the immediate inconvenience. Most people are able to get into their cars one way or another, but the effects linger. Many people are unable to perform sexually after being locked out of their cars, for up to 2 years. There is often a noticeable drop in effort and concentration on the job, too. Dr. Katz has also found that people who have locked themselves out of their cars are unlikely to go on vacation. These people will typically avoid parties and social gatherings, and understandably, they do not like to drive anywhere alone. This may persist throughout the person's adult life. Dr. Katz's treatment focuses on the issue of responsibility. It's not all that different from rape, he says. I try to convince the person that they did not do this, that they are a victim. From that point of view, we try to restore typical daily function so that they can operate within the normal range as a survivor. That awful instant of discovery, that isolation when you realize you are locked out of your car, is referred to as the shutout. Those who have experienced it describe it as something like that feeling of falling you have in a dream, the solid earth suddenly opening up and dropping you into an abyss that seems to have no end. After speaking with Dr. Katz for some time, I thanked him and took my leave. I went out to the parking garage, and just as I was reaching for my keys, I felt that terrible surge of dread and anticipation. It ended when I touched the keys and heard the reassuring jingle in my pocket, but I had, for that instance, an inkling of what so many suffer through no fault of their own. But it passed. The dummies.